Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, that means I'm good. I didn't know if my mic was going to allow me to actually work. Sometimes when I start out, my mic just decides to be like awful towards me and
Hmm.
not want to work. And it's also operator error because I forget that I'm also turning a mic on to go live. So deflecting some of that blame off of me and putting it on technology because just that
Yeah.
darn technology
A
not
bad
letting us.
workman always blames their tools, as they say. No, I'm
Good,
joking.
man. Well, I can't tell you how good it is to actually see you again. It feels like it's been
Yeah.
forever.
It's
It's
been a
been
little while. Yeah.
roughly a week, but I mean,
Mm.
given just how busy work's been and how hell like or hectic, I shouldn't say hell because life's not that bad, but how hectic it's been recently. Seems like a decade, but I mean, again, that's a common thread here with COVID, of course, resurging and making it feel like it did all over again in 2020. Um, but for those that are tuning in and watching from home or commenting that I'm just seeing now roll into the chat, I see Todd saying good morning. Todd Rhodes, it is good to
Morning,
see
Todd.
you. Hope to see you on a battlefield again soon. I know this COVID shit's coming up and it's really kind of bad, but if we can get you out and talking some Chancellorsville or something else this time, that'd be awesome because these two I really almost probably, not even without a doubt, hands down, my favorite tour I've ever done on these battlefields ever was with these two gentlemen. It was incredibly fun. We had some great discussions, and I think out of the people that I've taken around the battlefields before, we had some of the deepest discussions that I've had the opportunity to have outside of the park, just as a freelance historian and one that really does try to, you know, break the traditional mold in history and share more of the information than is generally accessible. And they were very receptive to that. So I again, the opportunities to be able to provide that again is going to be stellar, and I can't wait for it. And you get that too, and you come see me, whatever that might be.
Hmm.
Hopefully sooner
Well,
rather
this
than
is the thing.
later.
This is start. This the area you live is starting to turn into one of my favourite parts of the Civil War now. Because I'm reading more about it, learning more about it. I just want to be actually on the ground. So
No,
we
I
all do.
understand, and
Yeah.
that's the one thing I think I like about the open air museum aspect of the Civil War, other than the fact that it's an open air museum and it's free. And Todd, I appreciate that comment, man. Like it was a fantastic time. Again, soon we'll definitely have to get to those fields and do this very soon, very soon. But yeah, it's going back to what we were saying too. The fields during COVID were open. Museums obviously were not, which blew. But being able to go to those sites and actually stand on location, but during a time where things were just so rough and everything felt closed, is where you kind of get a sense of being open. I don't mean open like click a door open, you walk in, it's doors open. I mean as yourself, you can finally have that freedom to be without a mask. You could take that thing off if you're distant from people enough. You submerge yourself in just this like feeling of being in nature. Yet you're in a feeling of isolation and aloneness because you're out there by yourself sometimes if you're
Hmm.
not with people.
Yeah, but sometimes that's nice as well, isn't it? To get there on yourself and
Yes, it
yeah,
is.
with your own
One of
thoughts and your own.
my favorite Civil War quote of all time, and goddamn if I couldn't remember the author of this quote, but the author does state that the dominant feeling of loneliness is the feeling of a battlefield, or the only feeling on a battlefield is a dominant feeling of loneliness. And I don't feel like that is a negative quote. I think there's a lot that can be dissected and broken down from that. And my takeaway too, my main takeaway is that it's the best time to reflect. Lonely isn't always a bad thing. There's a lot of time for self work or for looking into things you may not have had the opportunity to do. And I think in more than one way that they're telling you that it's okay by saying that. I think it's a deeper dive in kind of understanding that paraphrase or that quote there, as it isn't. I think just a simple I'm sad and lonely on a battlefield. I think there's so much more to it, and that is to me a raw emotional feeling coming from a Civil War soldier, and it's absolutely relatable today as historians as we're out there studying. Oh man, well he's so sad, he's lonely. I'm not. You don't understand. I'm basking in this moment that I had little round top to myself in the sun setting. And I'm looking over the entirety of the second day's battlefield and just envisioning Longstreet crossing all of those obstacles that he has to cross in order to get to his objective on day two. And just picturing all of that up there by myself, that beats the hell out of a date at the bar or whatever it might be. Not dissing that by any means, because I
Mhm.
mean, fantastic. It's a great time. But those moments are lasting moments that you're going to have and that you're going to be able to hold tangible, I guess. Those are moments that are going to really matter in the development of your studies. Those are moments that are going to develop your personality with a battlefield, because there's two different people. There's one behind an armchair and there's one that's on a battlefield. I am two completely different people there, and that's a good thing, because I have my
Mhm.
outside battlefield focus, and then I have my book focused study work that I do in my
And
office and at
again,
home.
like we pointed out before, if you don't actually go and walk the ground, you'll never actually understand what
Yeah,
was facing
and you need to have
those
maps
guys.
with you in hand
Yeah.
on those fields too. I fully
So,
not enforce that, but I encourage highly and strongly suggest that if you're going to these fields and you're trying to gain a deeper understanding, have a map book with you, or just a general printout from the American Battlefield Trust that you can
mhm.
access for free online. They're very helpful in especially in battlefields like that I'm used to, where there's 10 feet of battlefield and the rest of it's a sprawling intersection and a major highway. The maps help to just kind of, wow, he's running through sheets, or wow, Wolford's over here hanging out in Powell's
Mhm.
Furniture's parking lot, and Trivets Furniture is just riddled with
And
Yanks and
the cavalry
Confederates.
are in the drive-through at McDonald's.
That's
Yeah.
right. Oh, you got a Slurpee and a
Yeah.
McGriddle or whatever on this side. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's the sad thing. But those maps do help, and this
Yeah.
augmented reality that some of these apps are offering on your phones, which is another great thing that I think digital history has taken under its wing, are these accessible battlefield apps that you can use while you're on the field. Whether it be a map, whether it be a video, whether it be GPS coordinates or narration, blah 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 blah. There's an app for that. It's the oldest saying since probably the early 2000s, but it's again ringing very true. You do have that accessibility now, and again, I know people really try to stay away from the obsession over technology, and I did myself, and I'm now into this embracing period in my life where I really do enjoy seeing the advancement of technology, because I'm seeing what it also does for history. So as good as it is for the future and the worries that we have for the future, it's also helping bring up and bring out more of the past than we've ever had in
It's giving
history.
it to
So
a
a new
wider
renaissance.
audience. That's the thing,
Absolutely. I
you
think
know.
history is going through a renaissance too. And I mean,
It
I'm not
definitely
even
is.
daring
Yeah,
to
I
say
think
that.
so. Yeah, and it's stronger than it's ever been before.
Right.
Definitely.
Oh yeah. You know what? Arguably, yeah. I think you could
And
honestly
because
go
we've
at
got
bat and
people
saying it
that
is.
are pushing it and doing stuff like we're doing, that it's getting out there and people are getting
And
interested again.
I hear it everywhere. Everybody says it, which is good that I hear it everywhere. But at the same time, I'm just like, okay, like the biggest takeaway people have from history right now is that history repeats itself. Okay, that's what I hear all the
Mhm.
time. Again, as a historian, my first thought is to challenge that, challenge everything. And it makes life extremely difficult, as I'm sure you know, because someone will tell you something and it'd be the Lord's truth, dude. But you just that little bit of instinct in your head as a historian, you're like, I don't know if that's all the way the case. Let me understand the situation to the fullest. And that's what we do. We obsess. The mafia stuff. The reason I'm diving so deep into it is because I was doing a small search on my mother's side of the family, that the Churchiellos, they're very Italian, obviously by the last name. So shits and giggles. After watching a documentary, I just wanted to see if I had any family relation while I was on my ancestry search, and sure as shit, I do. And the Genovese family. I don't want to dive too deep into that because that's going to be for episodes I get into further as I learn myself. I'm very raw at that still. But I guess this will start the research portion, and just real quick recap on what I've been researching, why I've been away from this for so long, and probably will continue to for the next couple of days or so, maybe even up to 2 3 weeks, because I want to make sure that this content is very well researched, well backed before I start spewing anything on a brand new subject that I'm just now getting into. But that is the organized crime in the United States and its history, and why it is important, just kind of as a whole. So we'll focus on not just one limitation, because initially it was limited to just the Italian side of the mafia that was in New York. But boy, did I just realize how much organized crime and how much different variations of organized crime we actually see in the U.S., leading to things that might even shock the hell out of you. Now we're going to start with the mafia because that's what I've got access to right now when it comes to studying. So we'll go with Al Capone. Kind of we'll start there, just as that's generally popular. As a starting point, I think, and very easily to pick up on, to where we don't get like in the weeds with all this different terminology and family history and yada yada yada. Because that's also at the time right before World War II, which actually again surprised me a lot, finding that the Italian connections in World War II, specifically with Mussolini and his hatred towards the Sicilian mafia, mafia coming from the word mafiosa, which is a Sicilian name, and then as we see it in the United States, obviously forming into the Cosa Nostra, which means our thing, translated literally. And we have this like really crazy immigrant story and fleeing from protection of what they looked at as crime and persecution, unjust punishment. But yet these same people immigrate to the United States to then carry out the same thing they're crying wolf about. And they're not even crying wolf, honestly. I mean, Mussolini is actually very seriously taking this threat and trying to crush it, which, he effectively, in the right mind, he does. I mean, I'm not a Mussolini fan by any means, as I don't think there should be any right-minded person that is.
No,
But there's things to be said good, I guess. I mean, he does effectively squash out a mafia, the entirety of the mafia in Sicily, and like that. And obviously, that's done with military force. You're sending in the fascists to go do this, so there's support behind it. We didn't see the United States sending the entire Green Beret squads into freaking New York and Brooklyn and just blasting down President Street or anything of that nature. You do definitely see that in earlier places that we with
so is
discussed
that
already.
where I know? Obviously, the mafia goes back a bit further than that in
Sicily.
America, but is that where you get the origins from in America?
Well,
In
when we discussed
you get
like the
more
five
people moving
families,
over from Italy, emigrating.
yeah,
Also, a
and
lot of these guys obviously join the US Army, and then obviously some guys actually then go and serve in Italy
yeah,
and fight back. So with some of these guys would have had connections in the past, I suspect, to Italy.
yeah, and absolutely they would have. That's the cool thing is that there's this absolute line. I mean, and it even draws into like we're talking mafia Cuba connections when Kennedy's being president. I'm not spewing the conspiracies you'll get on a lot of these TV
Hmm.
shows and these History Channel. I'm talking about what we have. Even still, we're getting documented information from FBI databases and willing interviews from maybe mob participants. Are they being honest in these interviews? Honestly, it could be just complete and total bullshit that we're being fed and spoon fed bullshit at best on a golden spoon. Because the reason is, why would you go and put yourself in a position to rat almost? These are secrecies that you're supposed to keep within your brother. I mean, Cosa Nostra really holds on to these values, and I will straight up kill you if you absolutely violate even the smallest. I mean, you'll end up dead right in front of your family. They didn't give a flying F where they did it or who they did. As long as there was a conversation about it and it was done, it was done. I mean, you're hiring outside people for the murders and the hits a lot of these times, but when you're clipping people in the family, that's tough. And of course, a lot of these people aren't even blood related. There's very few blood relations that run through this. The families are just the people that are joined into Cosa Nostra who are actually been made men or members of this outfit. That there's 5 of them that are very prominent in New York that really make up what we call the commission, kind of the head honchos, if you will, that even run up into the 80s. And I'm sure many of you that are older than I am probably will remember things even into the 80s, like Gotti and Paul Castellano getting shot cold-blooded murder right there in the middle of New York, opening a cab or opening his car door. Many murders after that, Carmine Galante, when he's killed at a luncheon, dead with a cigar in his mouth. Very famous picture of that, just laying dead on the freaking table with his other, I think it was his bodyguard, shot dead in front of him. These are very nasty fights too that these guys get in. I mean, very nasty times. Very very sick people that are involved with this. I mean, it's no different than looking at the gangs that are taking place in the early 40s because these are the same people. Capone is associating with like Lucky Luciano and the Gallo brothers. I mean, there's all these connections, and they run in, like I said, the World War II. And I mean, I just haven't even breached the surface on all the different criminal aspects of the United States and how that ties into history and the corruption that we've seen. And I think that'd be a good podcast series. Because one thing I want to do with Unfiltered is really expand on what we're doing. And I was like, well, we've done a lot, and we're on a lot of platforms. But from here, how do we effectively span out and still continue to broadcast and maybe make a new audience or a new community or just bring new members to the community. So I'm not going to separate, obviously. That's not what I'm trying to do here. But like category, you like this history, so we'll have a page for this. I want one entire collective group, but we all have different history takes. I mean, obviously our main focus at Unfiltered Historian is Civil War. That's number one. But as you've probably noticed, folks that have watched these before, that we're doing things that are absolutely groundbreaking in our terms anyways, because we're bringing out new history from England. Thanks to Darren here, he's been incredible with it. You know what I mean? Like having these different historical facts and little trivial things that come out that Darren posts during the day. I mean, it's appreciated so much, and I don't think he gets the proper thank you all the time. So again, dude, you
Yeah.
posting these and you
Mhm.
engaging the way you do have made the Unfiltered Historian today what it is. And again, I appreciate you. We're literally 499, one like away from hitting 500. 2 months time span, I didn't even see myself getting 136 likes. Not that I'm just doing this for likes, but to me that makes me happy because I'm seeing other people
Mhm.
are involved. Other people are watching this. Other people are
Mhm.
learning from this. So there's an outreach, and that's what makes me happy. Is knowing that there's a community being built, and there's a discussion now being built, and we're provoking thoughts. That's what this whole blog started out as when it was Crossroads and Crossfire, to provoke, get people talking, throw some controversial stuff out there that many people won't talk about because it's like they're worried about reputation, or they just don't want to say something to the wrong or offend the wrong person. Well, I own it. That's the Unfiltered Historian for you. I don't care. No offense. I don't. I'm doing you a disservice by hiding it or not being open about what I think might be controversial history. And if I'm wrong, I'm freaking wrong, dude. Tell me I'm wrong. It's okay. A lot of people, won't do that. If Darren does it all the time, and I appreciate it more so that he does that than if he didn't tell me I was wrong on that spot too. Correct me so I don't continue on with the wrong narrative. If I messed up, if I read something wrong and my double fact checks are just messed up and I'm not giving out, factual information, call me out on it because I
At
would hold myself to the same standard when you're giving a
the end
talk.
of the day, we're humans, and sometimes we do make little mistakes.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's okay. I mean, you or I or anyone else is any less of a historian because they made a mistake. Okay, that's why they make rubber erasers. You pencil it out,
Hmm.
you go back and you fix it. As long
I
as
mean,
it's addressed and it's
yeah,
fixed and it's made aware that okay, I did mess up. Here's you can always, and that's one
exactly.
thing I learned as an interpreter or historian at the Park Service. I did one of the greatest lessons that Greg Mertz ever gave me. And again, for those that don't know Greg Mertz, which if you don't know him, put Rocky under. Come on, one of the greatest historians to ever live.
Yeah. So
But
he's just
Greg,
retired, isn't he, as a
yeah,
park ranger for? He was working over at was it Shiloh?
no, he was working for Fredericksburg, Spotsylvania. He was
Oh,
my
he was.
mentor
Yeah,
when
but
I was at the park.
wasn't he over at Shiloh at some point though? Didn't he? Because he wrote a book about Shiloh, didn't
He
he?
did.
An emerging civil war. But so, oh, okay. So he's always worked for the Fredericks.
Well, from
Yeah.
my knowledge, yes. I mean, at least my lifetime since I've been living here. He worked there before I was born. But nonetheless, he's at this point where he's auditing my tour. You want to talk about the most nerve wracking tour I have ever given in my entire life? That is giving a tour to 32 people. So already I'm on a large tour. And Greg Mertz being in the audience, standing like this with his hand on his hip, with a pen and clipboard in the other hand, and in plain clothes, auditing my tour to tell me how I did and what I can improve on. And okay, this is 2016. I'm fresh faced, not even barely growing facial hair, man, like on the battlefield. Just turned 21. I'm just now having my legal beer. Boy, did I have a few that night. But I said a few things that were wrong. And one of the things that I messed up on, and I'm so glad I did this, not because like I should be ashamed of myself, but I shouldn't be. Sorry. And I'm glad I messed up because I learned so much from this. If I hadn't messed up, I would not have learned how to be this effective when it came to researching and factualizing my information. And maybe it's a trick that Greg has taught me to teach to you. I can pass it down. But the story goes, so the sunken road, there's a house, and I'm sure if you guys have watched my live videos that you might have seen it, known as the Innes House. Now, the Innes House is completely just riddled with bullet holes from the war. And there's a few that are up high. There's some that look like they're stray shots. Some are shot from a side angle. Again, two battles were fought there. Troops are firing in many different directions. If we look at Fredericksburg, statistically, 10,000 bullets a minute are being fired during the first battle in December 1862 on both fronts together. 10,000 a minute is ridiculous. I mean, we're talking borderline machine gun fire there. Now, I made a joke. I think that like the straw that broke the camel back to his little notebook, and every time I knew I messed up because he put his hand on his notebook. No, I did something wrong. Damn it, I messed up. Didn't want to visually show it, which poker face had to be absolutely strong, because Greg Wirtz writing on a notebook about your tour. God, I'm still getting shivers thinking about it, man. He finishes the tour with me and says, "Go back to my office." I'm like, "Okay, I'm done here. This is my last tour." Didn't even get, I didn't get reprimanded or scolded or yelled at like I thought. I didn't get looked down upon. He was just like, "So I noticed a few things on your tour were actually things we could discuss and maybe look into a little more and find out some better information on." First of all, great way to freaking tell me that I'm wrong. Like, you didn't sugarcoat it, but you sure as hell put some of that like fake sugar on top and spoon fed it to me. Not that it's a great thing to have happen, but I mean that was a very well receptive approach. I think someone is going to take that information and the way you talk to them more as a guide than as someone, as your boss, saying, "You fucked up, you need to fix this is how you're going to fix it." That shut down completely, man. Like, I'm not saying anyone's soft for that either, but I understand, like, shut down. You just don't want to be spoken to like that as a human, and it's okay not to be spoken to like that. And he's not coddling you with that kind of verbiage either. He's just, "Okay, we were wrong. We're going to learn differently," and goes out of his way to show you the right and proper way to do this. But again, doesn't just give you the information. You got to find it yourself. So, first thing I mentioned at the painting where I start my tour was the wrong number of guns that fired on the city of Fredericksburg. I now know the right number. It's 183 cannon exactly, roughly firing 83 rounds apiece, meaning that the city of Fredericksburg took 8,000 rounds thereabouts from the Union guns up there on Stafford Heights, which, again, ho, 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 ho. That's not a fun prospect to even begin to think of. So he mentioned, I had some numbers wrong and that I was trying to use them as my first. He said, "But look into it a little more." As I look into it, I drew up and I was like, "Greg, I think I found numbers that I could honestly say is accurate, that, I matched them with 3 different sources, including the official records." So takeaway was, I learned the numbers. The big mess up was the Ennis house. I had a joke that the soldier firing sucked. Bad shot. Didn't like the kick to his gun, and the gun barked too much and it shot up. Well, he actually grabs Frank O'Reilly's book off the shelf, takes that, and we walk down the sunken road. We go down the road and we get to this point where it's the original road, the original wall, and everything's still okay. Not where the mock-ups are today. So at the very far end, closest to Hanover Street and closest to William Street. And as I'm over there looking, he's like, "Now look at the map in this book." And I'm looking at it, and there's a line of North Carolinians just above the sunken road in a makeshift trench. And we look over this little hedgerow, and he's like, "Do you see that little depression in the ground that's bordering on the hedgerow?" I'm like, "Yeah, I see it." So that's where your 26 are. And we stood up there for a minute, and I pointed like I was aiming a musket. I'd have hit the same place those 3 or 4 bullet holes were at. So in effectively doing this, and I'm sorry I just went off on this random tangent on this, but I think that's a cool story to share, especially for those that know Greg Mertz or just have ever wanted to learn more about that historian, being credible as he is. Having that moment of visualizing what he's trying to teach me, being reprimanded in a caring, "I want to see you succeed" mentality, and then actively going out there and instructing and walking by his side and helping to rebuild that, made me to the point. I had one suggestion on my second tour. He said, "I would shorten your second stop by 5 minutes." That's impressive. And I'm not even like just trying to toot my own horn there, but like they even told me that's impressive to have happened from a historian like that. Mind you, this is first year ever giving tours too. That's how I knew it was my calling,
So
man.
do you
Like,
still give tours now then?
oh,
On the
absolutely.
occasion? Yeah.
Not for the park. I mean, I will, like,
No,
as a
not for the
volunteer.
park
As a
service, no.
volunteer, I will. Yeah, so I should say yes, I do.
I know
But
one
that's
person that will definitely vouch for you, and that's the Mr. Mikowski as well, because he also learnt from Greg, from what I understand from some of
and
the
that's how
stuff.
me and Mikowski met. We became friends that way. We would have
So
we would chat on the phone every
he
now and again.
basically gave Chris the tools to be able to do tours as well. You know?
Absolutely. And what was cool is having Greg Mertz and Chris sign the Hell Itself book before Greg ever had his Shiloh book come out. I had Greg sign that portion of the book, his little
Yeah, so
foreword,
he writes the prologue, doesn't
as he
he?
should have.
Yeah.
I've got so many funny, and we'll have to do a whole episode. Maybe I can get Greg on here one night so him and I can
Yeah, that
talk
would be
about
cool.
this. I
Yeah,
just saw
I
him at
mean,
the
like I said,
symposium.
I'd like to be able to, for us to do a show like that once a week with a guest.
Well, let me talk to Chris then for the next upcoming week because I mentioned I wanted to have him on here soon. I want to have Kevin Pollock on here too. I talked to
Yeah.
him at the vet. I've talked to Shawn Michael Chick. I've talked to all these guys, and I
Hmm.
definitely want to try to hold through with that now that we're back and running, and the podcast will be coming up very soon. Of course, the first season, just we're gonna have a couple different topical podcasts. Those are going to be on Patreon, available through there. We're going to ask $1 a month if you can spare it. If not, I can just give you guys free codes. I don't care. But for those specific ones, and I'm not going to do $1 a month until we actually have a following. And that's just to help support the page because we're getting to a point now where it is getting to a need where I'm going to either start putting my personal funds in here or find a way to start doing fundraisers or something mutually beneficial. But that's exciting to get to that point where I'm like, okay, I need to start funding this thing. Well, I have too, and a lot of this has been all of it has been out of my pocket so far, with the logos and the merchandise that have been got printed. I have so many hoodies. Hardy 1863. Good day. By the way, I saw your email. My email system on Gmail is shite, and I'm trying to figure out a way to either save that or I'm just gonna scrap it and get a whole new email.
Good day to you.
So I have it. I meant to respond to you. I just want you to know that I did not forget about you. But yeah, I think that's gonna happen soon too. Is a new email because that's been.
I
No,
know
we'll get
one
into that.
topic we said we was going to discuss a little while ago was Jack the Ripper. I think we're going to have a
That's
discussion
gonna be a
about that
fun one.
one
Yeah.
day.
Why don't you do
Um,
me a favor then? Why don't you start going ahead and studying up on that because there's this
I will, yeah. I mean, I know a fair bit about it anyway, really, because
there's this theory, and
I've
I'm not a
watched the odd
conspiracy
things about
theorist.
it, and I quite like the conspiracies over it. Because there's a lot of conspiracy theories.
So I might be able to slide a conspiracy theory podcast to talk about it because I'm not big on the conspiracy theory stuff
No,
myself. In
but the
fact,
thing
I
is,
try to stay
nobody
away
actually
from
ever
it.
knows who the guy was. This is the thing. So that is why the conspiracy behind it and the theories, that's why they got so much traction, a lot of them, because we don't know who it was. Nobody knows who this guy was apart from the guy himself.
And you're right. And I think the one thing I wanted to talk about when it came to that is there's a series that came out in its History Channel. So again,
There's a lot of series about this topic.
there is a serial killer in the United States known as H. Holmes. Are you
Hmm.
familiar? Chicago World's Fair, 1893.
So did he spend time in London?
He is supposedly Jack the Ripper.
This is the thing. Obviously, at the time, London was a massive, very busy port,
Correct.
and
And everybody else and their mother is
a
too.
lot of
But
people say he was a merchant sailor, and but again, there's also rumors that
well,
obviously one of the rumors was he was American as
mm-hmm.
well, but
No,
he,
and see, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to get caught up in the minutia of all that because there's so much to get
yeah,
caught up in. But
oh
with
yeah, I know,
him,
yeah,
there's this line that connects, and he's acting out of Chicago during the fair and luring women to this hotel that he purchased. So he's a rich dude already. He's a con man, murdering. He's into the whole dissecting humans and selling cadavers. So he's already had the practice when he's coming over there, and it's saying that he is the same person because he goes by similar aliases wherever he goes. And Jack the Ripper is apparently going with an HH, or he goes by a different name and yada, yada, yada. And even in his memoirs in jail, he writes that, he was performing these acts on women in London. He said Whitechapel, ring a bell, or something of that nature in his own memoirs. I mean, obviously, Dude could be fucking bluffing, but I don't know. But
I mean, he might
it's
have said that to sell the book, yeah. I mean,
correct. That's exactly what I'm thinking too. If you can get some money on your books in jail, yeah, might as well. And anything to make that story better. It's like this thing with the Civil War. Embellishing makes a great story. But at the end of the day, there's some great, interesting points to look at. If anything, it's a great dive into his life and the careers of both aspects.
mhm.
And that's what I want. Since he's he's in UK, if we're going to do those conspiracy episodes, we might as well look into that theory some more and maybe just entertain it. And again, I will put on the beginning of the podcast. This
Thing
is like
is,
a
to me, it
cartoon. It's
always
entertainment
points
only.
to it being somebody from another country because it just stops.
Why don't we do the
And
real Fremont and
yeah,
Longstreet then relationship?
serial killers don't stop. Once they start, they don't stop.
And dude, like
So
Holmes has a whole hotel built for this. I'm talking
mhm,
gas chambers in the wall, and if you've ever seen Sweeney Todd, that little invention he's got where he's got the
mhm.
chair. That all came from him. that idea of the chair, like that story is real. Oh, not that the barber and the throat slits and the bullshit that is, but the actual
Hmm.
the mechanical chair that is throwing people down into these furnaces and homes is burning them. There are two great books out on them. I'll bring them up tomorrow or whenever we actually start that episode. That's going to be following the organized crime and the mafia stuff because that's going to be our serial killer aspect. So we have
Hmm.
time for that. But the one I said you start setting up on is the mafia.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I'll start looking into it, and we'll start. We'll do something on that.
which
Um,
brings me to if you want to go ahead and do any piece, I'll start the talks. I know we're getting to our last 30 minutes or so here, and I had a piece I wanted to do to start just like a teaser with the mafia stuff. But go ahead and if you want to add anything about your events, what's going on with you? I know you're at a
yeah.
reenactment this
So at
weekend,
the
so
weekend,
please.
I'm going to a big reenactment here in the UK. It's one of
Mhm.
the biggest ones of the year. So it's a 3-day event. You literally have everything from military history, from pirates, Romans, Vikings, everything up, and we've got American Civil War, obviously we'll be there, World War II, World War One. There's military vehicles, and so on Saturday or Sunday, I will do a live on the Unfiltered Historians Facebook page, and we will walk around the whole site, and we shall bring you some history, reenactors, some good stuff.
Yeah, and I'm excited for that. So I put a link in the chat there. That link is for the article. I think is the best on the topic that I would like to discuss with you guys this morning. I can't forget or remember what time of day it is because But that's the link there for those that are not. It's on Daily Mail. What I have been getting into again, we've been talking about the new podcast that I want to do, and I've really taken a liking into some of the comparisons or just what I'm learning about organized crime in the United States history, and what it does in connections. And I'm sorry, I just realized I wasn't sitting up straight all the way, so I had to fix the camera. And I'm having a bad camera day. Looks like there we go. But the organized crime again in this relation to U.S. history and immigration, and I've been getting into things like like Ellis Island and lots of cool stuff. But I just get drawn back to the mafia, especially the '80s and the mafia. It's been New York and the famous five families that are really starting to collapse and crumble under the FBI stronghold because now there's a belief that these entities really do exist. It took a lot, but it was either generally accepted or thought as hogwash back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Hollywood allure, I guess, but it wasn't, and it was everywhere. You've if you lived in the '80s, if you live today, you've somehow in your life paid for something mafia owned, know somebody that you would never even expect having ties to it. Maybe they don't even know they're expected to have or they have ties to it, but it braces every part of human life in the United States and abroad. Very, very willing to say that. I mean, you had 90,000 members identified as mafia when they organized as five families. The number today is obviously significantly smaller due to the collapse of some of these entities, but we're still looking at this happening. And what I think we're so drawn to as a public, the U.S. public, is this huge Hollywood allure, like Godfather, Sopranos, all these films and TV shows are not necessarily glorifying, but just making accessible the stories. And I think what that does is focus on the major organizations that are about, but there's something that just recently started getting into the focus that I really am happy I picked up studying this. Again, what we say is history's renaissance. The mafia is finally becoming, it means history now. We're just over 20, almost 30 years away from the 80s and the crazy shit that was happening in New York. We're getting to a point now where this is being looked at. I didn't get to live through that. This is like the comparison of not 9/11, but I see a lot of kids today when I'm talking about September 11th. They're like, I wasn't alive for that. It blows my mind. Like, what? I remember being in first grade watching the towers fall. You're probably just like, wow, you're a child. Well, dude. But
I
yeah,
remember it like it was
yeah,
yesterday.
I don't remember. I wasn't born when Kurt shot himself from Nirvana. Let me tell you that. I still had about a year to go.
No, no. Well, yeah, I don't remember that, but
No,
obviously I remember the news story. But
no, I don't. The
9/11, I
first
remember
memory I
watching
have
it
watching
live on the
news was
TV.
Titanic. Yep, Titanic was the first recollection I had or first memory I have was watching the ads and the Entertainment Tonight special on the movie that James Cameron did. Back on topic though, talking about mafia and small town. What I got inspired by is interesting. It's a new book called Small Time. It's written by a historian I'm actually familiar with, Russell Shorto, and he doesn't write this kind of stuff. Nor did he really know that the mob affected him this way. Just to recap, so it's a narrative of his family, true story about the I wouldn't say Pennsylvania mob, but no, I would say Pennsylvania, I won't say Philadelphia. No, the Pennsylvania mob, the Johnstown, Pennsylvania, a small family owning a cigar shop that are mafia. They're not New York. They're not they're not big name people at all. They're this small town, but it's got all the elements of a mafia story. It's got romance, drinking, sex, murder, cheating, racketeering, the style, the lies, the bullshit, everything that you would expect from a mafia story, right here. But yeah, I think it brings it to a more relatable level because small town, everybody knows everybody. You know these people now. It's not the same hits that are taking place in New York and Florida and hell even Philly in the inner cities. These are personal, more gruesome, and I think more vile hits, man. So it was an interesting thing to look into. So I made it just like, well, it can't really be everywhere. I said, I know there's nothing that ever happened in Virginia, and boy, was I wrong. Boy, did I find some of the most bizarre mafia story ever. Maybe seriously, like it was like, holy fuck, how did this even escape the headlines? But you might know what I'm talking about if you remember 1989. If you lived in Virginia, you'll remember a string of arsons that took place in Virginia Beach in the 80s. These arsons took place at pizza joints. Pizza joints? Mafia? Are you serious? We're really going to go down this road? Yeah, absolutely. Stinking right, we're going down this road. This most stereotypical crap you could think of. That's right. The burner, the arson, the scary tough guy we're talking about. The Catone brothers. Well, I should say tough guys because there are the brothers. The main one's Salvatore Catone. Catone, at the time of his arrest in 1989, was 42. He's going to be arrested alongside Baptista Perón, who's 57, identifying that they're from Virginia Beach. Perreto Catone is 39 at Chesapeake, Virginia. And they were indicted August 17th, 1989. Not too far from being like, what, almost exactly 30 years. We know that there was a case with an older brother, Giuseppe Catone. Now, this is kind of funny. So these guys are all getting arrested for racketeering and charges of arson. The big brother's arrested for a cocaine smuggling case out of pizza joints in Washington, D.C. Because this mafia is identifying as the D.C. mafia. Two things strike me as pretty ballsy to off bat. Way to operate out of the FBI's backyard, buddy. Those people that you're opening a front in a pizza joint in DC, you're feeding the FBI agents. You're feeding Congress. You're feeding the president, the executive offices, the IRS. Everybody and their mother that wants to get you behind bars is in your inner circle. How long are you going to get away with racketeering and owning illegal properties? Not long at all. That's why Giuseppe's sitting here locked up, and the other Catone brothers are now operating in Virginia, identifying as the Virginia mob. You don't get to escape them. Well, nonetheless, when the DC court found it out, it's called the Pizza Connection case of the 80s. As I just said, playing in their backyard, you're feeding informants, and that's exactly what happens. An FBI informant comes in and slaps charges with cocaine distribution, extortion, money laundering, and burning down restaurants. Sounds mafia to me, don't it? It's got all the elements, man. Well, in addition to Catone, Giuseppe Catone's second pizza connection participant noted in Norfolk, Alfred Torriello as a butcher. He's got cocaine distribution conspiracy charges. I'm sure some skeletons in the closet too. You don't just get to name the butcher for no reason, especially when you're not a butcher of traditional sense of the word, of course. Torriello is the one who burns all the places down, paid for his services. Paycheck signee, Salvatore Catone himself. People in Italy were related to this case and brought up on charges. It actually extended that far. Well, Salvatore, who likes to go by Sal, was going to be named principal defendant in this charge in Hampton Roads, and he gets 17 counts of murder for hire, arson, conspiracy to commit arson, distribute cocaine. It was sent with 22 years, 122-year maximum prison sentence. $6 million, if convicted, was also to be paid in restitution. Pietro Catone, brother of Giuseppe and Sal, was charged with 7 counts of racketeering, cocaine distribution, extortion, mail fraud, and wire conspiracy. He faced 35 years and $5 million fine if charged, again to be paid for restitution. His nickname was TT. This is Piron. TT's an interesting name. He got hit with 5 counts and had to pay a $750,000 fine. Salvatore Catone tried to have another mob boss by the name of Lanfranco Casali, who later was introduced as an undercover agent. The informant to bust them, by the way, was botched and had to be a rushed arrest because they tried to kill the informant. They knew. They're not stupid. This whole idea sounds stupid, but little did they know how close they were playing with fire when they were in D.C. D.C. is their big mess up. Because if they hadn't operated out of Washington, who would have ever caught them on? I mean, the local police aren't going to be able to bust a ring, but you're selling to informants, bud. That's where you went wrong. Informant did his job well. That's all I can really say. Torriello was offered $40,000 to kill just a guy who owed him money, and we're talking pocket change. He was offered more money than he was owed. So this shows the grit and the true power that these guys have. They can just piss away $40,000 on a guy's life, all because he owes him like $200. I mean, dude's a ruthless killer in my mind too, because he doesn't care about the money. He wants somebody dead. He's sending a point. He's sending a message. They laundered all their cocaine from those pizza joints that they would have, and any competing pizza joints that would turn business away were ineffectively taken out, burnt, exploded, disposed of. Many of their burnings were inspiration for a couple of scenes in the beginning of The Sopranos, actually, when the Sopranos are doing insurance fraud on the pizza joint. They got that scheme from Paul Mitchell's in. Says it sounds like a heavy combo. It is. Sometimes we like to bring down the history on you. And we've discussed talking about organized crime history, and we're nearing up the end of our podcast. And I did say that I'd like to do a chat and a little talk on the title. So that's what we're finishing up now. We're talking about Salvatore Catone, who is a very little known, ruthless, powerful mobster, mafia boss, that capo, if you will, from Virginia. And we're at the point now where he's laundering money through Michelangelo's restaurant in Virginia Beach, which is located on the 900 block of Pendergrass Court. There's another restaurant, The Bachelor's 2, that's burned in 79 to enable the owner to collect the insurance money. That is the scene in The Sopranos, if you've ever seen it, that I'm talking about, was influenced by this happening. Or this is where they got the influence from. The source came from this incident. The indictment also says that Giuseppe sold Pietro's 1984 BMW for $2,500 with Pietro's consent, and that Pietro reported the car stolen and filed insurance claims, again with the insurance fraud. Typical mafia behavior and actions and crimes. They were raided in the restaurants. Records were completely taken when the FBI decided to raid them, so everything was cleaned out. Restaurants effectively shut down. Michelangelo's AAA and mobile travel guide raided restaurant where Salvatore Catone was allegedly shown photographs of a supposed dead Casali, a chief who identified himself as Frank. Said he does not believe the criminal charges. So on their business page, there's pictures of hits that they've done. No, actually, I haven't had a vanilla Coke since you told me I was drinking. Seriously. I thought about it very seriously when I got into it. I feel like drinking a
You
heaping
put the
glob of
pot man off
Acier.
now, Paul.
Stick to the coffee, damn it. Also, water's pretty good too. It keeps you hydrated. I hate the taste of it, because there is none. But I'm not a big water fan. But it has been since preferable to beaver ass. I will promise you that.
I don't know. You haven't tasted the water around here. It's very chalky.
I'm good. Chalky's nasty. No, God, no. Yeah, I wouldn't be drinking water over there. I'd have to just drink beer. Honestly.
Good choice.
That's right, man. Well, at the end of the day, these guys are going to go to jail. This is really all that happens. But I think there's a lot more to this. And I'm going to be starting next week, going down the rabbit hole, and we're going to get to the bottom of this story and maybe even come up with a book. My first book might not even be Civil War related. If I can get all the information I need to hear about Mr. Salvatore and the Giuseppe and the Catone family itself, if I can get more information about that, I think we got an interesting story, because I don't remember seeing a book on the DC Mafia. The Small Time by Rosso Shorto, which I highly recommend. I wish I could reach out and get a hold of him so we could chat and get him on here so we can talk about selling his book on the website and having access to that. But if you have the opportunity, go on Amazon, find the book, and send yourself a copy, because it's fantastic. It's a light read, it's very quick, but his writing is very, very above superlative.
You should definitely try and get hold of the guy, And
I'll talk to. I'm gonna see if I can, because there's a few. I've seen a few. I do, and I do have a contact for the Michael. I can't remember his last name now to save my life, but he's a former mafia boss, and he does speak. He's a pastor now, and he does talks. I don't know if he charges for his speeches or if he'd be willing to even join us for an hour or so one day, and actually get to talk to a former mob boss from the Five Families. He was in. Yeah, man, I'm talking some awesome conversation coming from that. But not so much. I don't really want to just highlight the violence. I want to talk about just the mentality of waking up, putting on your shoes after they've been shined, and knowing that you are a mob boss. What that was like inside of that mind. So if we could, that'd be cool. I'll do some. I'm gonna do some talk today, because that's it's really cool to see everybody having their little job within the Unfiltered Historian. Everybody's good at certain things, and you've got the publicity posts. You got the postings, trim them up and get the people. I'm the network. I like to go out and talk to different people, and I'm like your wheel and dealer here. Well, we want to offer this for this. It's always a mutual thing, because I want to see what can benefit other folks too. It ain't selfish here, man. That's what I really like to try to pride ourselves on, is we really do look out for the community. And, hell, one day I really want to see this go to a nonprofit so that we can do more. But with that, expect more Mafia stuff, guys. If you guys are liking that, I'm awesome. Let me know, truthfully, if it's something that you really don't even care to see. Just message us on the Facebook page. We have it we have it accessible for you for questions, comments, concerns of that nature. If you want to pitch ideas, or if you want something posted, or if you want us to talk about something, our Facebook Messenger is open. Our merch store link is now up and live. If you want hoodies, it's starting to get cold. An Unfiltered Historian would look rather badass on you this year. Just saying, take a picture of it if you get one. We'll post it on our Facebook page there as well. And anywhere else we have our post reaching. Look out for the podcasts. Look out for any messages we have from across the pond. Do you have anything for us before we close out?
Yeah, so I've got a few exciting things coming up.
Awesome. Let's hear it, man.
I've got 2 podcasts on the. Well, I've got Barton Myers. Everyone might know Barton Myers from the Grant documentary. Dr. Barton Myers.
Yes, sir. Washington and Lee University.
Yes, and he's an expert in guerrilla warfare in the Civil War. So he's coming to talk to me on the 31st of August, and so the video will be out quite soon after. And then at some point in October, I've been talking to another historian called Chris Kolakowski, and we're going to cover Perryville.
Okay.
Perryville, because
Perryville
was on the 8th of October. And also, me and my friend Mark are going to go out back to Hastings or back to Battle Abbey, and we're going to do a proper video about the Battle of Hastings.
Well,
And
I look forward to it.
there might even be a chat beforehand because there's a big build up to the Battle of Hastings. It's not just one battle. There's a lot going on, so we're going to need something else to broaden it and deepen the story.
Absolutely.
And again, don't forget, the weekend there will be a live video on Saturday or Sunday from the Unfiltered Historian, live from the county showground in Kent, Detlin.
I look forward to it all, man. I really do. Well, sir.
Okay,
it has been a pleasure as always. I'm glad I was able to do that. Tonight, I am off of work tonight and tomorrow.
So I suspect you'll be doing some gaming tonight.
Let's play in a game real quick. What should I do? I have a few options. I actually want to plan this one out. I'll even make it an event too. I could do, let's see, hold on. World of Warships, which I do a lot, so I might set that out. I could do a War of Rights all out tonight. Pretty much just crank out an entire game of that. Do Ultimate General Gettysburg and do Ultimate General, and I can do Napoleon Total War, which I have a Civil War mod in for right now. So those are like real-time strategy where you can like hover above and watch the battles and let you control it by moving the regiments, or I could do like on-the-ground skirmishing in the Southern Maryland campaign.
Sounds cool.
So what do you think I should do? I'll let you pick tonight's game. The cool thing about War of Rights is that it's got a 200-person server live right now.
It does look good. I am very, very tempted. It's just having the time to sit there and actually play it. Yes. So Paul will be there on Sunday with his camera, taking some great pictures for us.
Lucky duck. Yeah, and Paul, if you want to ever, like I said, send us those pictures. I'll credit you. I'll send you I can send you a link. You can be our official one of our photographers too.
Pictures.
So I'd like to get start doing what we call street teams. So as you know, we have like founding members, which is myself, Darren, Tim Wilging, and John Bruce. The four of us are just like kind of the guys that just like run the logistical stuff behind the scenes. No power, nothing like that. Just he would play World of Warships. I play it all the time with my buddy Tattooed Historian. We go live and stuff, so that might even happen. But if not, I think War of Rights might be the move since we're gearing up towards the Antietam anniversary. I just keep playing next. It's got South Mountain. It's auto scale too. Like all these maps are actually like what it would have looked like, and they've taken their time to make sure that's the case. So we'll have those. We'll do that. We'll do some Maryland
again as well. I want to say, I think we definitely need to get us all together at some point because we haven't actually all been on yet together.
Oh no, 100%, 100%. I absolutely agree.
The thing is, John's so busy with his job, it's hard to get him on. It'd be good to get us all.
Which is also why there are four of us, because the four of us are able to, if one of us can't do anything, or if two of us can't even. There's a chance that two can still post and keep up, and even with him starting.
I really would like to do an open chat about Antietam on the Saturday after the anniversary.
That would be cool.
If time. Obviously, it depends whether people have all got the time.
I hope so, man, because the time it's been hectic, and again, I'm sorry that I haven't.
I don't want a structure to it. I just want to be able to sit there and chat about it.
Sure. Well, I mean, and that's the thing. We don't really, have that. Necessary
I've got
structure.
a fairly decent knowledge about Antietam, and I know everyone else will do as well, so it'll be good to sit there and just talk about some of the main moments, wouldn't it?
I would have a ball, honestly. I can't stress enough how much that would be needed. Honestly, I think so. Let's see, what is today? Today's Wednesday. Yep. Okay. Let's see. Battle lines. Bruise and battle lines. That's gonna be the event name. I know you're on live still, guys. I'm sorry, we're just creating the event name live, I guess. But I'll go ahead and sign us out of here. Folks that have joined again, like I said, thank you so much for everything you guys do here for the Unfiltered Historian. We really do appreciate it, and it's wonderful to be able to come on here and chat and have some of you guys engaging and just chatting with us because it's really really cool. Yeah, Paul, just send, like I said, send us some of those pictures, man. Just send it to our Facebook page there on the or on Instagram on the instant message button you see. So we will get those, we will see those, and we can in turn post them from there and give you credit. And I appreciate you being willing to let us use those because anything and all helps. We're a community based thing, so you're helping us out there. But again, guys, the engagements are awesome. We thank you for your viewership, and we will see you again. 8 o'clock, 8:30 p.m. EST. Unfiltered Historian will go live with War of Rights doing some Maryland campaign stuff. The maps rotate, so I can't sit here and be like, "Oh, we're going to Turner's Gap, Fox's Gap," but all of those are options. Sunken Road's an option. Bloody Lane's an option. That is Sunken Road. Westwoods, Dunker Church, Cornfield. We might see it all, but we will be seeing you guys again at 8:30 p.m. EST.